Dedicated to southern and eastern Kentucky. This is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Keaton Hall. A new report by the Courier-Journal has some bad news for election engagement here in the state. It shows the past midterm election had the lowest voter turnout in nearly 30 years. Jeremy Toms has the details.
A report from the Courier-Journal shows that Kentucky had its lowest statewide voter turnout for a midterm election since 1994. Stephen Voss is an associate professor of political science at UK, and he tells me that stems largely from the fact that so many of the races on people's ballots this year were predetermined.
Congressional seats that weren't seriously being contested, a Senate race that was seen as a foregone conclusion. It's not surprising that turnout was low with so little to decide at the top of the ticket.
Even while being buoyed by the amendments at the bottom of the ticket.
The turnout likely would have been even lower if we hadn't had Amendment 2 as the caboose at the end of that train.
A majority of registered Kentuckians did not show up to the polls. Lexington saw its lowest voter turnout for a midterm in at least 40 years, with just 42% of registered voters showing up to the polls. It's a figure which stunned Fayette County Clerk Don Blevins. In Madison County, only 40% voted, a sharp drop from 51% in 2018. Voss noted that these numbers can be made to look worse because of the fast-growing population in the Lexington metro.
You have to be careful with turnout statistics because they're not just looking at how many people voted, they're calculating it based on how many people were registered. As you get more people on the rolls who aren't really committed to politics, it can make your turnout figures look worse.
But the clerks are still troubled by what they saw this election cycle.
So a voter in Madison County would have elected everything but one senator and president from top to bottom in this election, and only 40% turned out.
In Lexington, Jeremy Toms, WKYT.
Barger says some voters were also discouraged because of the lines they saw on Election Day. But he says the wait in Madison County wasn't longer than 40 minutes once you stepped into line. So he's working with the State Board of Elections to try and make wait times more clear for voters when they arrive for future elections.
Well, high pressure in place as we move past the 5:30 hour, at least the 5:30 half hour on this Friday evening. TGIF, most of our high school football region games kicking off now in about an hour or two, or really 2 hours, and it's going to be bitterly cold for every single one of them. Mountain Parkway at Slade, the sun setting there in the distance, 34 as the road cones continue there on the parkway. Downtown Whitesburg, all looking quiet at this hour as the sun sinks below the mountain. Temperatures continue to chill. We're here at freezing in Hazard. Same thing Pikeville, Prestonsburg, and up into Irvin as well. 34 in Somerset and in London. Factor in the breezes. It feels like 26 right now. Jackson, Hazard, and in Prestonsburg. Feels like 25 in Wise and 24 in Moorhead. Last of our afternoon flurries long gone from the region. But if you're headed out to high school football, keep that First Alert weather app handy because you open it up and it'll tell you you need to grab the sweater tonight because it's going to be very cold down into the 20s as we run into tonight. And I think we wake up in the morning in the low 20s, and some folks may be in the teens by the time we wake up in the morning. Details, though, on when we return to something a little bit closer to average in a few minutes. Keaton?
That is cold. Thanks, Evan. Democrats may be poised to select U.S. Representative Hakeem Jeffries from New York as Nancy Pelosi's successor now that Republicans are preparing to regain control of the House in January. Nicole D'Antonio reports from Capitol Hill.
I will not seek re-election to Democratic leadership in the next Congress.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's decision to step down from her historic leadership is giving way to a new era.
For me, the hour's come for a new generation to lead the Democratic caucus that I so deeply respect.
Democratic Caucus Chair Hakeem Jeffries officially announced his bid for Minority Leader in a letter to colleagues Friday, humbly asking them for support.
I think we all hope, in whatever capacity we find ourselves in, to continue to benefit from the wisdom, guidance, and advice Speaker Nancy D'Alessandro Pelosi.
If elected, the 52-year-old New York representative would also make history as the first African American to lead a party in Congress, taking the reins from Pelosi, the only female Speaker of the House. Pelosi's longtime number 2 Majority Leader Steny Hoyer will also step down.
I think it's always good for a party to have new blood and new invigoration, enthusiasm, and new ideas.
With the new Congress set to begin in January, Democrats have also announced plans to release an extensive report on the January 6th Capitol attack that month. Republicans are also laying out their priorities for the next Congress, which include aggressive investigations into the Biden administration.
Rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse will be the primary goal of a Republican House Oversight Committee.
House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy has received his party's nomination to become the next speaker, though it's unclear if he'll get the required 218 votes he'll need to receive the gavel. Nicole D'Antonio, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
In his statement last night, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell called Pelosi's impact, quote, consequential, and said her path-breaking career is one that will long endure. House Republican Leader McCarthy was not present for Pelosi's announcement, telling reporters he was in meetings. A Republican political operative was found guilty of funneling illegal Russian money to former President Trump's 2016 campaign. Yesterday, a jury said Jesse Benton acted as a straw donor and contributed $25,000 of a Russian foreign national's money to Trump's campaign. Officials say Benton also falsely identified himself as the contributor and then pocketed the remaining $75,000. Prosecutors say Benton concealed the nationality of the donor from the campaign. Benton will be sentenced in February, according to the DOJ. Criminal probes into former President Donald Trump just got ratcheted up a notch with the news that a special counsel will now take the lead on those investigations. Skylar Henry has more details from the White House.
U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland announced he's turning over the investigations into former President Donald Trump to a special counsel.
Appointing a special counsel at this time is the right thing to do. The extraordinary circumstances presented here demand it.
Jack Smith, who has been with the DOJ since 1994, will now oversee key aspects of a probe involving the January 6th insurrection and efforts to undo the 2020 presidential election, as well as the investigation into the former president's handling of classified documents at Mar-a-Lago.
As special counsel, he will exercise independent prosecutorial judgment to decide whether charges should be brought.
In a statement, Smith said he intends to conduct the assigned investigations independently, going on to say the pace of the investigations will not pause or flag under his watch. Attorney General Garland said that former President Trump's announcement this week that he would make another run at the White House and President Biden saying that he too will likely seek re-election prompted him to make a decision now to appoint a special counsel.
Such an appointment underscores the department's commitment to both independence and accountability in particularly sensitive matters.
A Trump spokesperson released a statement saying this is a totally expected political stunt by a feckless, politicized, weaponized Biden Department of Justice.
Well, good evening.
House Republicans, who will be in the majority beginning next year, say they will investigate what they call political attacks on the former president. Skylar Henry, CBS News, the White House.
Special counsel Jack Smith has been working on war crimes at The Hague in the Netherlands. He's flying back to D.C. to begin work as special counsel immediately. Smith will report directly to Attorney General Garland. Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, a Christmas tree made its way to the nation's capital today. A closer look at what makes the tree so unique.
Plus, cold air continues as we head on through tonight. You see, it's making me a little frog in my throat. Latest on when we could get closer to average on the way after this.